That's not me. That's okay.
I
Just
fixed
incognito today. It's fine.
No, not incognito. We give you a name, and it's your name, so it works out. Oh my gosh. Here. Can everybody hear? Can everybody hear? Dr. Sarah Hayes.
Hello.
Yay! Oh my goodness. Oh my God. I keep a magnet in my pocket so I'm attractive. That's amazing. I love
great.
that. Wait, somebody says your hair is blue. Is your hair blue? Is
Oh, yeah.
Right?
So this is going to wash me out, but it'll help you see.
Okay, I need to know. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. So I have a story about blue hair. When I was in college.
I'm ready.
It is so pretty. When I was in college, I really, really wanted to dye my hair some color. Like I wanted to make it a point to dye my hair some color. So I dyed it blue, looked at myself in the mirror, freaked out because I was like, why do I look like that? That's not what I look like. Oh my God, I'm not supposed to look like that. Went and got the color removed out of my hair. True story. I literally went to one class with it. It's not a bad thing. I just learned that like dyeing your hair is not how I express myself, and that's totally okay. But I experimented. It's just funny that I was like so overreactive. Anyway, hi, this show is about you.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you on.
It's okay. For what it's worth, I did the like super dark blue, because like my mom, who hasn't done hair professionally in 30 years, did it with me since COVID. And I've always gone dark because I feel like there's this thing about being professional that creeps into your head when you're a therapist or you're like doing jobbies, and it's like doing my muggle job that's not my gaming time is always supposed to be super profesh. But
sure,
all of my clients now are like, don't change your hair color. This is you now. This is your life. So
good.
You know.
But that tells you got the right clients, right? Like it goes both ways.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know that I can imagine you sitting with a client who's like, and then I properly folded my napkin and she said, don't do that. You're improperly folding your napkin. I don't know. I don't know. How do normal people act that aren't nerds? I have no idea.
I often, like, because of my profile, attract nerds anyways and game industry folks. So a lot of the conversations I'm having are around like a lot of NDA life, but a lot of gaming production, or a lot of like, I was playing this game, or like, what is that called? Marsh Roads, where you play like bits of D&D, but not all the time. We were talking about that the other, like, that's my conversations. It's not about napkins or socks. Like,
okay, great. Perfect. That is the difference that it made to talk to a therapist who understood all that stuff, like the speaking the same language. It's really funny because like when I introduced myself to this therapist, the conversation was very like focused around like, hey, I need somebody that understands nerdery because anxiety is a huge part of my life, and it's and it causes stress, and I want somebody to get that. But then the past few appointments, we're just talking about my childhood and family and pretty classic psychology stuff. So I'm like, I'm not taking advantage of this nearly as much as I should be. But
there's a blend, right? There's a blend.
It's a blend. But I don't think I actually introduced you. Hi, everybody. It's Mxiety, and I'm on tonight with Dr. Sarah Hayes, who is a wonderful, wonderful, supportive being. I think I like got to know you because you were so supportive of the stuff that I was doing. And you were...
Because you're doing amazing stuff.
But you were like cheering me on, and I was like, I don't know. She doesn't even know me, and she really likes me. That must be good. And then I love what you do, and I love your brain, and I love how it works. And that sounds weird outside of a psychology conversation, but yeah, here we are. I love
brains.
I love your brain. Oh, it's totally.
My brain is great.
I love your brain. It's so wrinkly and gray. Okay.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
I love it.
Okay. All right. So we are going to talk about, serious stuff. We're going to get down to business.
Yes.
But so tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us where you come from.
Okay.
And your background and what got you into doing what you do.
Okay, so behind me, you'll see Furiosa, my puppy, sleeping over there by that pink toy. No, just kidding. That is my background. That's Atlas sleeping over there.
Okay.
2 dogs. So, but to be serious, my background is in counseling, psychology.
I just got that joke. I'm sorry. Okay. I just got the background joke.
You opened the door. I had to walk through it.
You did such a good job, and I just went. Okay, go
just
ahead,
followed
please.
along. It's okay.
Please go.
So, oh my gosh. So, I am, I have my doctorate in counseling psychology, but what that means is that I have learned more hands-on than how to research or diagnose. That's what a Mxiety is. And then counseling versus clinical. Clinical is more about diagnosing. Counseling is more about the practice of doing therapy.
Okay.
So that's my specialty by tradition. And then my, sorry, my screen is like flashing. I don't know what's going on.
Oh no. Oh no. Don't break now.
Just, I work for my, what I call my muggle job, like my income, my primary source is in private practice based out of the Seattle area in Washington state, but I am currently located in Minnesota, staying with family because COVID, you know, it happens.
Fun times, yeah.
Super great. And why not be with family since, you know, perpetual quarantine. But
better to be with, absolutely better to be with, you know, the devil, you know.
Absolutely, yes. Than an apartment building. Heck yeah, any day of the week.
Yeah.
So I also am the vice president of Queer Women of Esports. And we're a nonprofit that is aiming to bring forth and highlight queer women who want to participate in, are participating in, or are doing the good work currently and are competing in esports. And so we are working towards a methodology of sponsorship. I'm currently working on finding grants to help us along the way. And then we're also formulating a mentorship program. So more down the pipeline on that later. I'm also a clinical contributor for Take This. It's a mental health nonprofit who you've probably heard about before on this stream.
This one in particular, probably a few times.
But we strive to educate and advocate for mental health support and decreasing stigma around it in the games community and games industry. So you'll see me more often planning, submitting, moderating, and presenting on panels at conventions in the before times, and now arranging that on PAX Online. We're doing the AFK online room. We normally do the AFK room at cons, and that's the most boring room by design. And so you can go there, take a break. It's quiet. There's coloring. There's staff who are licensed clinicians at all times of open hours. We are also doing this in the AFK online room in our Discord for PAX Online. So 9 days of straight through clinically staffed. It's really exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. Otherwise, you know, I just sleep with my dogs at that point because that's a lot of stuff.
When I'm not doing that, I am cuddled up in a little ball next to my dog. That sounds like me. People are like, you do so much. I'm like, yes, but the recoup time is nothing. I just become a potato for the rest of the time. Before the
I become a pumpkin at midnight.
Yeah.
And then I have to recharge.
My God. Wait. I use that phrase all the time. I literally, my husband and I joke that at 10 p.m. I turn into a pumpkin. So like, if I'm not in bed at that time, I just will disintegrate and then be no more. Yeah. Ella's asking, AFK Online, how do you interact with Discord without a keyboard? You guys, the puns are too strong. I can't.
I don't, it's at this point, it's just to carry forth the name that people already know, but please use your keyboard.
It's the K room, okay? Just keyboard room. You don't need anything else. Yeah.
People are not theoretically by the rules allowed to take a nap. If you are sitting peacefully and your eyes happen to close for less than a certain amount of time, which I will not disclose on this stream, then we probably won't bug you, but it's not a room for naps. Sorry.
Got it. I mean, I have seen it used as such and then promptly unused as such. Yeah. I also, oh my gosh.
But we'll wake you up gently and politely like therapists will.
Wait, have you ever had somebody fall asleep in your therapy appointment and had to wake them up? Is that a thing?
Twice ever.
Oh my
and
God.
One of them was switching from day shifts to night shifts at work, and so their sleep schedule was off.
Right.
And the other one chronically had insomnia, and so thus, you know, and I'm not counting the ones when I worked at the treatment center because that doesn't like.
That's a whole separate thing.
drugs
Yeah.
will do that to you.
Yeah.
But that's a different story for a different day.
So let's talk about, and I know I messed it up. It's women in esports.
Of
Esports. Okay. And
queer women of esports.
Okay, the women of esports. The distinction is important. It's I can't explain it, even though I'm an editor and should know how to explain this in English. But like, I know that there's a distinction, and it's important because that's proper English. But yes, anyway, so let's talk about that. I want to know all about that, especially considering there is a lot, and I've talked about this a little bit with Dr. Rachel Court. So please do continue. There is a lot of discussion about how girl gamers, female gamers, and all kinds of other terms.
Can we take a pause for the word female? Like
female. I am a female.
Why is the E like an eon long? Like female.
There's a joke brewing somewhere in my brain about like a female is like a male but with more iron.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a good one, right? I don't know how to draw that, but that's what I've been thinking recently. Yeah.
Made of stronger stuff.
There you go.
There you go. I mean, I always think of like a nature documentary when someone uses the word female to describe women. Like, oh look, it's a lovely female gamer in the wild over here, rustling around with a controller, trying to figure out how to push the buttons, but her lips are just getting in the way. It's like, what?
Here we see the female gamer in her natural environment, posing as a gamer because she surely can't be one herself. Oh God. Oh God, as a gamer.
Yes.
But why do you have like a hypothesis on why do we use that term? Why do we make that distinction? Why can't we just be like gamer people? Why is there, because I never heard somebody be like gamer boy other than like Game Grumps as a joke. Like, but like gamer
but
boy
it plays on the fact that we talk about gamer girls. Yeah. So I had to research some of this looking into writing a chapter on like gendered spaces and conventions and girls aren't allowed at conventions kind of a thing and the history of it. And all of this kind of spawned when Twilight came out and entered San Diego Comic-Con space. So then there was some anger about the like it's a mess, but the problems are twofold. One is about the like seriousness that people see things as, like Twilight's not a serious fandom versus like CS:GO is a serious fandom. Or like, how do you define fandom? How do you define like serious games versus casual games? And how do we look at like what defines someone as a gamer? What defines someone as a serious or dedicated gamer? How many hours per week? What's your like
what's the criteria
line?
Yeah.
Does Candy Crush count? Which frankly, I know people who play Candy Crush and they play more games per week than I play, and I play a lot of games because half of my therapy time outside of clinical contact is homework, preparing for meeting with my client the next week, watching like a show that someone was like, you need to watch this so you can understand this thing that I'm trying to tell you about. So I'm sitting there like pounding through Netflix series trying to figure out like, okay, this is that, and oh, interesting character lines, and this is analogous to this client's problem. So like that says something about how often that person plays that game and how much they enjoy or how dedicated they are to it, but it has nothing to do with the value or the like the inclusiveness of that person in the community. But it's become a thing. And so there's social integration theory in psychology, which kind of talks about in-groups and out-groups, and how when we're in an in-group, which we're all in in-groups like women or men or gamers or pick your descriptor, we end up incidentally favoring the people in our in-group and finding things that make us different from the people in the out-group. So part of this is using a term like girl already reduces the value of a grown-up, because we look at someone like, you hit like a girl, you play like a girl. Well, what do we think of when we think of little girls? Because automatically, first of all, my brain filled in the word little. Second of all, like, it's not going to be strong. It's not going to be persistent. It's not going to be driven. It's not going to be any of those things. There's a reason that like
she's labeled bossy. That was me.
Yeah. Versus like a shark versus, can I swear on this stream?
Yeah. Go for it.
A shark versus a bitch in a business setting, right? Like,
right. Yes.
they're the same thing, but we have gendered beliefs around them. I mean, all of this starts from birth, really, when we start putting kids in pink hats and blue bottoms and funky diapers that have Woody versus Jesse on them. It's like,
yeah,
do we have to?
Yeah.
But also that's where it all stems back in that stuff. And then it all stems into in-group and out-group and how we look at social acceptance. And so you want to perform so you're accepted by your in-group. And so thus you're going to identify like, they're not part of our in-group. We're part of this in-group. This is us. Let's confirm. But then that excludes people. And that is the entire reason why QWE, or Queer Women of Esports, was founded, because it's not fair and it's not okay. And people need to understand that there's not so much hullabaloo around like spaghetti straps in schools and skirts in schools feels so much the same to me as like, oh, she wears lipstick, I'm gonna be distracted, she better not play with me. Like, where are we? How old are we? You are acting like children, so stop calling us girls and stop being boys. Like, stop. Right. And let alone that binary.
Yeah. We can start with the whole binary issue. You know what? If we're gonna start anywhere, and we'll tap the binary issue is very important. But I want to talk about the fact, man, teenage girls have enough shit going on. Can we stop making fun of them for Twilight? Like, I get it.
Yes.
It's like really bad. I tried to read 3 chapters and I flung my Kindle out the window. Like, it is not great. But like, teenage girls have so much crap going on. Let them have Twilight. Let them believe that a sparkly vampire is gonna come and save them. Like, just let them have it. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, and what does it do to you if they like that? Like, at the end of the day, they get to go home to wherever they're at, and you get to go home to wherever you're at, and you don't have to watch Twilight. No one's pushing the book in front of your face. Like,
right. Well, I do understand. Okay, so I do understand there are, speaking of harmful stereotypes, there are harmful stereotypes in the book. The guy literally stalks her and like watches her as she sleeps.
It's definitely toxic. It's just a terrible narrative.
It is. Awful. But I feel like if you can have that conversation with your daughter and be like, here's the parts of the, like, I understand, but like, here's the parts of this that are not great, and let's talk about them. Like, if you can have that discussion, if you can have that discussion, just that's it. Like, let them be. Yeah.
Leave it be.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that aside, the binary aspect of it, like, because when you start diving into the binary aspect of it, a lot of stuff bubbles up immediately, right? So like, if it's not okay to be a girl gamer, it's not okay to be a gay gamer. It's not okay, like, all of those things that we connect to gender, which is, let's go there. Let's talk.
The thing that makes me upset is like, so many things make me upset about this. There's this funny thing in esports that happens, and broadly that happens socially, where like the view of someone being competition does not start and stop in a game. It's also like evolutionary. Like, oh, she likes women, I like women, that's not fair. What? She's not gonna be stealing your girlfriend, dude. Like, calm down.
That's not how it works.
It's nobody's business but that single human. If someone's non-binary, like, if they're NB, cool. What does that have to do with how you push buttons on a controller?
Right. In no way, shape, or form does that change. I don't know if you saw this. There was a guy who posted on the subreddit, "Am I the asshole?" And
I love that subreddit
so good. Much. But he got his comeuppance, so I'm gonna start by finishing that. So what he talked about is that there was a group of friends, and one of his guy friends got a girlfriend, and he started grilling her because she claimed to like, comics and games and stuff. And he started grilling her.
I mean, I'm already concerned because you use the word claimed.
Yeah. So she said that this is me quoting him. She claimed that she liked these things, and so I had to go and question her to make sure that she wasn't just posing. And then all of his friends were like, "Yo, you're being an asshole. Stop doing that." and they like stopped talking to them. And so he went on the subreddit and was like, am I being the asshole? And then the whole planet was like, yo, you're being the asshole.
Yes.
And then in the end, he like, his final post is like, this is bullshit. Like, nobody actually gets what I'm trying to say. You know, somebody has to like make sure that no other people aren't lying. Like, yeah. So he tried to like over-explain himself, and then that hole just got deeper. And anyway, go ahead.
That's that social theory. That's that in-group stuff coming up, because they're like, who gets to decide who gets in and who gets out and who's not or part of the community. And like, whatever they like, they like. Right. Let them like it. Whatever you like, you like.
If they're pretend liking it, what is that? What will that happen? So then you'll ask them a question about, about Dragon Ball Z, and they'll be like, oh, it's over 2,000 instead of the right number, which I can't think of off the top of my head, 9,000. And then you caught them in a lie, and then what happens?
She's a real Dragon Ball fan, folks.
I got
Pass the test.
Oh God. And then you caught her in the lie, and then what happens? Like, does the world implode? Do you have to break up with her because she wanted you to like her, so she said she liked Dragon Ball Z because you like Dragon Ball Z and she wanted to have something in common with you?
Well, let alone, if she's interested in Dragon Ball Z, even on a superficial level, if we're going with this like heteronormative situation,
sure.
Like, if she's doing that, at very minimum, be happy that she wants to know it. Like, if you run into someone, like, first of all, nobody's handing out certificates as official, like, gatekeeping of the gamer community. Like, nobody's saying, yes, you get to declare whether or not this person knows, and here are the questions that you must use to determine this information. You must ask exactly how many is a Super Saiyan. Like, no. But if somebody that you're interested in, or someone that you're talking to, like, is there and is saying that this is something they're interested in or they like, either just like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Is there a particular character that you love? Like, that is very different from, oh, really? Well, then how many is a Super Saiyan? Like,
yeah.
Does it matter? And also, if it's in esports, like, they're gonna fail. Let them lose. They're boosting your numbers. You get another elimination. Cool.
Right. Or they don't. There's literally like there's a numerical thing attached to it. Yeah. There is a hypothesis that I heard that I am kind of, this is back in the day when I had read Chris Hardwick's Nerdist book, but he talked about this. This was before we all found out about Chris Hardwick, but he talked about the fact that, so his kind of hypothesis was that a lot of these gatekeepers are guys who felt excluded on this basis growing up. So like the fact that they like Dragon Ball Z made them the weird kid out of the class. So then I feel like I need to keep all my weirdos who like Dragon Ball Z over here at this gate. And if you're pretending to like Dragon Ball Z, that makes it really cool. And I don't want you over here because you excluded me before. So no entry. No girls allowed. Just happens to be a girl, but it happens both ways for sure. But
it happens every which way, and it's like, that is true. That hypothesis is supported by science, and it's this whole, like, the identity as geek by itself, the identity as gamer by itself is already one that is of a particular social exclusion. Like, we're already in a category where it is not typical or popular. It is viewed as abnormal. That's the word geek comes from a German word Geck, which means freak. So make those ties. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that. I don't know why I never thought to look that up in all of my years of being a card-carrying geek, mind you. I was properly excluded and properly, as we know, I know everything about being a Super Saiyan now. I'm going to be honest, and full disclosure, I have watched Dragon Ball Z Unabridged, and I made fun of it the whole time. Oh, Abridged. No, there's a YouTube. I don't know if you know. There's a YouTube series called Dragon Ball Abridged, and it is like Dragon Ball episodes condensed, like with
that sounds great
taken out of them. They're hysterical, and then like revoiced. And I was like, I can't watch this, guys. But I still know over 9,000. Anyway, neither here nor there. Let's go back. But that's really cool. I didn't know that that's where geek comes from. So you're already in an out group. So why do people in the out group want to keep other people in an outer group?
I think that it's because it messes with the bounds of feeling like you belong when everybody belongs, and Marvel's a big fault for this, like the Avengers, the way that took over mainstream, and like everybody now knows who Captain America is. Everybody knows who these, like my mom knows. She's seen most of the movies. My mom's not a geek, but she knows them. Yeah. She loves the carnival game on my Switch that is the beginning and ending of her gaming career. But like
But is there do you get who gets to say that your mom isn't a geek? Like if she really likes the movies and maybe she like continues and starts reading about the lore and then reads a comic, who gets to decide that she's a geek other than her? Nobody, right? Like
she does. It's her.
Yeah.
It's
her.
And she's not doing those things and she doesn't identify for that. But if she did, she would. And she's the boss of that information and she's the boss of that identity. And if you feel like you belong, much like in queer spaces, right? Like there's a lot of pressure around using a label. Like if I were to categorically label myself in the community, there is a term called lipstick lesbian, which I fit into. It means a high femme. Well, high femme is technically more femme and a little bit more high maintenance than lipstick, but that's debatable. But anyways, those are terms used to pinpoint my tiny little box of what my queer identity is, and people understand that and it makes sense and it's easy because the brain is like it's a bunch of boxes and it wants to know why. And that's why stereotypes exist, because we want to understand and make quick judgments and know what things are. And gray space, gray area is uncomfortable. But that's where we can hang in the balance with somebody. And it doesn't matter. I mean, this is a derogatory and offensive statement in itself. So I apologize in advance, especially to my NB and like androgynous and mass presenting, blah, blah, blah. Asking what somebody is, none of your business. It's their knowledge to know, regardless of their equipment between their legs or on their chest, what their body is doing, who they are, and what their identity is. But there is pressure both in the queer identity and in the geek identity to put a label on it because we want to know what that is. But it's toxic because unless you're like a stereotypically feminine presenting woman, cis woman who plays video games on Friday nights and can hang with the guys and play Halo 3, but also like wears high heels and can go out and likes to listen to Britney Spears, like then you don't fit in the box that people want you to fit into, and you don't actually like it as much as them because then you'll take that label away. It's about feeling like they belong, anyone. And when that gets challenged, there's pushback.
Yeah. Man, that sucks though, that the out groups are doing that like.
Yeah.
Do you, but, and I mean, layered. We don't just do this in gaming, right? We do this everywhere. Like, I am not just a project manager. I'm an editorial project manager. And God forbid I come up to another project manager and tell them that I'm a tech project manager. Oh, Lord. Oh, but do you know, like the quizzes that I went through when I tried to get a job at jet.com, which is now defunct. So, yeah. But when I tried to get a job there, were so insulting. Like they asked me, they're like, name the types of project management. And I was like, okay, I mean, here they are. What does that have to do with the job? Like, does that make me more qualified to be able to project manage because I know all the kinds of project managers there are? Like, anyway, but that was...
Can I do my job because I know what my job is?
Yeah.
Isn't that supposed to be something you hand me?
Right.
I feel like it's the same as celebrities when they're getting interviewed. Like, there's so many clips of like Scarlett Johansson or I'm trying to think of who else does the challenging so directly. But nonetheless, the celebrities who are like, they go right after a male celebrity, and the male celebrity gets asked questions like, what inspired your character when you played in this movie? But then for the women, who designed your dress? It's like, did you ask what he's wearing? Like,
right. What is,
why?
There was a movement. What was it called? It was called like, Ask Her, or there was a movement on the red carpet that was Ask Her More, I want to say. But they like made it a thing one year where the whole point was you couldn't ask her what she was wearing.
Good.
Yeah, I don't remember when this was, and I don't know how successful it was, but I remember it was a thing, and it was like a big deal. They made a big stink about it on E! News. But yeah. Exclamation Q, fam, if you would like to join our question queue and start throwing them in there so that we can start answering them slowly. This is awesome. Do you find that it sounds like you do, so I'm sorry if this is kind of a repetitive question, but do you find within the community this happens too? So it's not, because I see girls excluding girls too. It's not just like other guys being like, oh, you're a girl gamer. It's other girls being like, well, she's not as good of a gamer as I am. Like when I exclude myself, because I will say like, oh, I just play Sims. But what that translates to is I don't play CSGO, so I'm not really a gamer. But
right. Well, that's sad, right? Because you're putting yourself down threefold in that. So the things that are traditionally taught in masculine structure and framework is don't use like the words like or oh or well. You just say the thing directly. And then just is a term already that you're hindering yourself from having enough space. Right. You're minimizing your space. And then you're also like your tone. It's sad. Like, oh, I just play The Sims versus like I play The Sims.
Right. But I
totally
feel like
different flavor.
I have to do that because if I don't do that, then somebody else is going to put me down. Because the next question is, well, what do you play? I'm going to be like The Sims, and I'm going to be like, oh. I've had this conversation. I've talked to, in line at TwitchCon getting my ticket, literally that exact discussion. Like, what do you do? Oh, I mostly do, just chatting shows. And then when I'm not doing that, I play casual games like Sims. And they're like, oh. And then the two guys introduced themselves, and one of them played CSGO a lot, and the other one played Left 4 Dead, I want to say. And then I was done. I was out of that conversation because they were talking about stuff that was cool stuff. And I was not cool. But
can I ban the phrase casual games? I just want to ban that word, that phrase.
Casual. They're like, whatever, I guess it's a game.
The Sims is a life simulator.
Yeah.
That's my new title for that game. Because I don't know, the language we use is so important. And that's why the word girl is hard, because unless we're talking, like I said in my tweet, like unless we're talking about minors, there are no girls involved. There's just gamers.
Yeah. Oh man.
But there's all that discrimination. I think the hard part is the pushback, where like it becomes the responsibility of the subject who gets the pushback, aka the women or the queer people or the like minority in any the out group to the relative in group. Huh?
I put a sticky note over your face. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure that I get the questions. And I put a sticky note.
That's
over
okay.
Your face. I'm sorry.
No worries. So I think that the thing is, when there's pushback from in-group to out-group who are trying to cohabitate, at least, if not integrate, the pushback becomes, well, and this is true of any ism, right? Like when we engage in microaggressions or racism or like, because systemically and all of these things, it's historically built into the language we use. Like I deleted my tweet for the other stream that I'm on tonight because it used the word master in it. I recognized it as soon as I published it. I took it down and I changed the word master because I don't want to replicate and continue that use of that word, because that word is based in slavery. So that's how deep this rabbit hole goes. So we have to think really hard about it. And if you were to ask me, like, did I mean that? Did I use that word to hurt somebody?
Of course not.
I think we can all safely assume, and I will tell you that the answer is absolutely not.
Right.
But we take offense when someone's like, hey, you're excluding me. Hey, you're gatekeeping me. Hey, you're not letting other people in. Internally, they look at themselves and think, and any of us, we all think, well, but I care about including people. And this is a community where we're all supposed to finally have a safe place to go and talk about our passions and be geeks and be nerds and love this thing and love this game and care deeply about it. But they're saying that I'm not letting them do that, and that's not who I am. So then we take personal offense to it and we get defensive. Whenever we do that, when someone challenges you, it becomes then the other person's responsibility to remove the discomfort of calling you out. but that's not fair either. So what happens is it becomes this gruff defensive dismissal because we don't want to deal with that interaction after that and own shit and then go back to like, I have responsibility as a result of knowing this behavior pattern within myself that I need to change.
Right.
It's instead, well, you don't get it. You don't know what I'm talking about. You don't understand what I'm trying to post. I'm not the asshole, but you are, especially now.
Do you feel like, I mean, do you have a response ready for people who are like, you're just sensitive, everybody's just so sensitive right now because everybody wants to, everybody's offended? And it's true. Like I will say I have like posted a tweet and been like, I really like ice cream, and then somebody's responded with like, yeah, but you're a terrible person because you didn't mention that you like oatmeal, and some people really like oatmeal and some people don't get to eat oatmeal, and you should feel bad about yourself. And you're sitting there and you're like, oh God, what did I do? I forgot to mention oatmeal. I mean, I was just making a tweet about ice cream. I didn't even think about oatmeal. So like that kind of like overthinking is what drives people to be like, oh my God, everybody's just sensitive. I'm just going to write whatever I'm going to write.
Stop being a social justice warrior.
That was the sound you make when you say that.
It is. And it's the feeling, right? Because there's this bit about like having to change the way that we interact with the world and having to change the way that we do stuff that's uncomfortable, and change is hard. And so it's like, no, I don't want to. And then it's just easier to blame it on the people trying to make the change. But my typical response when people are like, well, you're just, why did you do that? Whatever. I question internally, do I have the emotional bandwidth to handle this conversation? Because if not, I'm going to say, sorry, we're going to disagree on this. So I'm going to step away from this conversation and just set a really firm boundary. Or if I have the spoons, I'm going to lean in and say, I know that this is an uncomfortable situation for you maybe, but I think that you needed to hear that because I wonder, and this is probably a therapist line, but I'm going to say it anyways. But like, I wonder how many other people have had this experience with you and not had the wherewithal to call you out on it. Sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, but I think it's important that you're aware of that, and it's not my job to make you feel better.
Hell yeah. Okay.
But so, I'm also a straight shooter, so
I prefer to say what I'm thinking rather than regret later that I didn't. Yes. Because I feel like if I don't do that, it's like not a moral failure, but like I guess like a failure of my beliefs. Like if I strongly believe in something and I didn't stand up for it, I feel like I did it an injustice, and like I will feel terrible about myself for not standing up for it. But then I also like I have like last week it literally happened with a tweet that people were like, well, I'm questioning your intent with this, and why did you say that, and why did you do that? And I learned so much because I stepped back and was like, I literally asked for opinions, and people gave me opinions, and a lot of them disagreed with me, and some of them agreed with me. And I ended up having to delete the tweet because people were disagreeing in like super, super mean and unproductive ways. But the people who did disagree with me in a polite way, I learned so much more by stepping back and being like, okay, I had this opinion, but like it wasn't etched in stone, and I can have a different opinion now, and that's okay. And I feel like that's another thing that's not necessarily allowed for people, right? Like that, making that mistake and coming back and saying like, oh, I don't think that way anymore, is not something that our society really has space for, unfortunately.
Cancel culture is easier. Again, that categorization, we put it in the nice little box, it's done, it's over. Versus like, people should be able to grow and learn. And if they're willing, personally, if I can, I say the same thing about apologies, and I'm really particular about apologies in that it contains two parts. One, it contains an apology for the actions that the person did or didn't do, which caused the harm. And second part, the more important part, is, well, they're equal because one's accountability and then the other one is reparations, which is like, hey, I'm sorry that I didn't talk about oatmeal. In the future, I'm going to be sure to balance my tweets about ice cream and oatmeal and address both of those problems. This tweet was about ice cream, but I also need to learn and remember, and thank you for calling it out because it is a hard thing. It's the same thing like, misgendering people, right? Using
Yes.
pronouns that are incorrect. Like,
I've messed up
say
a
that I
few
was calling
times.
you he for a while, and then you told me actually identify as a woman. So then I'd start calling you she, and then anytime I'd say like the wrong name or someone else called you the wrong pronouns, I would just be like she. I'm not going to interrupt the whole conversation. I'm just going to automatically correct that word as much as I can. And oftentimes I'm met with, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And it's like, no. This is not about that. This is just about course correction. This isn't about interrupting anything. Please keep going. You didn't mean it. It's just building habits. So we have to call these things out and learn. But if I see somebody who's willing to acknowledge that and also subsequently is making change and posting and sharing their evidence therein, not because they're trying to white knight through their mistake and cover their own butts, but because they're actually trying to make meaningful change as a human, I think that's really important to be able to acknowledge them and re-engage with them when we can. And if it's safe, and if they haven't burned a bridge with us where like, the Me Too movement, there's a lot of people where it's like, even if they do show meaningful change, it's okay to still feel uncomfortable with interacting with that person because of a history with them or something within you. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The question of misgendering comes up because I've messed up, and one of my moderators is they them, and I've messed up several times, and learning to course correct appropriately, because like I have stopped the entire show like to be like, I am so sorry, I messed up, and I don't think it was inappropriate, but I like the whole idea of like, what you're saying is, let's focus on the solution and keep going. Like, we don't, if it's not like an egregious, thing that you did, and if it was meant with good intention, and you genuinely, like, all parties understand, oh, you fucked up. There's no reason, like, we don't need to be hung up on our failures. But I think it's because, like, I personally, I got hung up on it because I was severely afraid that somebody else would get hung up on it before I did. So like, I had to do a certain amount of repentance to make up for the fact that I messed up.
Right. So well, and you're a public figure. People are watching your every move, and it's scary because even if like no pressure, but like say that you tweeted something about ice cream, and then later your friend's like, actually ice cream is really hard for me right now, and you're like, oh, okay, go aside with that person and be like, hey, I'm sorry I misgendered you on stream, and be like, oh, actually it's they, and then keep going in the conversation, and then later you can take them aside. But people don't see you have that side conversation, and while you know in your heart and in your brain that you did that thing and they know that and everything's copacetic, there is also pressure on you as a streamer to like do the public part. So I hear that. And also, like, you can just say on a show like, hey, here's what I'm gonna do, here's my intent, and then if people are ever like whatever, you can send them a clip of that bit and be like, hey, here's this. Go away.
I actually meant it like this, so please go away. Yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like there's a lot less room for public figures to mess up. And this isn't me, I know this is kind of like not even on topic. This isn't me being like, oh, please pity me because I have less room to make mistakes. I understand that I set myself up to this space, and this is the space that I wanted to occupy. And with occupying that space, there are certain expectations. But it is scary the amount of crap I will give myself for messing up, on top of whatever I perceive other people to think is the like, I'm gonna give myself crap, and then on top of the fact I see others giving me crap, and it's compounded instead of just being like, oh, I made a mistake, I can fix it and move along. So that part doesn't suck, but it's different. How about that? It's different.
Yeah. And I mean, either you can open up the form to like, how bad was this mistake? 1 to 10. Put in your poll answer, folks.
I have done that.
Or
Sam, have I done that? I've definitely done that.
Brutal. Oh, but I feel like all of this is.
I was like, okay, court of public opinion. We're all gonna sit down and talk about how I messed up, and everybody's like, dude, it's okay, you messed up, but like, you can fix it.
You're
like,
human.
Yeah. And I was like, no, I need to know. There has to be a firm answer. And I will have everybody know that I've since talked about it with my therapist, and I'm in a better place now. But in the moment, and that is, I think that is the course that a lot of people should take. If like, I don't know how to appropriately respond to this, and I can tell my brain isn't responding to it the way that socially people expect me to. So let me talk to a professional about that and figure out how I can course correct in a manner that makes sense to me and sets my brain on track that makes more sense to everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, I'm a provider who is out and open with my ADHD, and sometimes my brain does things that I don't like it to, or it takes me in places or directions that I don't want it to. And you can also just externalize your brain and be like, my brain's being really stupid right now. I hate my brain at this moment, but here we are. I'm feeling a little self-conscious about this, blah. But also, like, do you and take care of you and do what you need to do, and also be kind to yourself.
What? That's sorry. We're breaking up. You're breaking up. I'm sorry. Are you going through a tunnel now? Oh my gosh, I can't hear you. Sorry, that's the interview. All right, Theo. Let's go through questions because we only have Sarah for just a few more minutes. So, and I should have been asking these before. Okay. Janarius
Rapid fire.
Rectify. Janarius asks, is there any research about gatekeeping? Why?
Tons. There's a ton of research on gatekeeping. So I will say that we brought her up in the stream already, but Dr. Rachel Cowart's doing really great research around this topic. There's a lot about, like, I don't think we want to entirely off script because a lot of this is interconnected, and the like two perspectives of why does it happen, where does it come from internally, and why does it happen, where does it come from, like, culturally outside to people. But there's a lot of research on gatekeeping, especially around, like, if you look up gamer girl, if you look up I'll have to dig it up, but I will tweet a photo of a bunch of books that I had tweeted out at PAX West last year that I used in a talk that I ran called Am I Geek Enough? Female and non-binary experiences in gaming spaces. And it was a panel full of people who have been very experienced in the gaming industry. I've done this panel a couple times. We're not doing it on PAX Online because that's just too much vulnerability to ask people to do online. But I tweeted a bunch of books. I'll retweet that tweet so you can see what those books are. But there's a bunch of research on, like, being a fake gamer girl or being a gamer girl. If you look up terms like serious gamers, or if you look up like, oh gosh, I don't want to start name dropping, but just look up those things and you'll find the rabbit holes, I promise. Or Zoe Quinn or Depression Quest. Those are great starters on gatekeeping and toxic community stuffs.
We have Anita on next week, so yeah.
Amazing! Hooray! So she can also fill that in for you quite a bit too.
Yeah. We're focusing on Games Hotline, so I'm hoping that we kind of circumvent all of that, but if we need to go into it and she's comfortable, absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Super serial gaming. Yeah, exactly, Dick.
I love it.
I know, right? Phoenix Sativa asks, I actually had this happen in Overwatch today. I had a girl on our team playing DPS, and the sexist asshole kept harassing her to get off DPS and throwing and kept asking her questions that had nothing to do with the game. Why don't game companies permanently ban assholes like that? That's a great question, Phoenix.
So I think the problem is twofold. One, where are you playing the game through? Is it through the game itself? Like you play Overwatch or Fortnite or whatever. Is it on stream that people are harassing you? Who is going to moderate that? What are the rules in place? So it's kind of messy already. And then it's hard when, like, confidentiality. If someone were to work in the games industry and I might or might not have talked to them in a clinical format, I might or might not have heard several stories over about the complaints end of things and how that looks and why that's so toxic in and of itself. When someone gets banned or reported for saying something awful and toxic and then gets banned for it, great, but it's not consistent. It's not always it's not always effective, and it's not always supportive. And that's why, like, in QWE, that's part of why we do what we do. That's part of why Take This does what it does, because it's like people get into a really bad place mentally and emotionally when they don't feel safe in those communities, and when it's not consistent even a little bit, then it becomes unsafe.
I mean, we talk about that. It's been a discussion on Twitch overall in general recently about how Twitch is not consistent with its bans. And how
Correct.
long it takes for them to investigate. It's really interesting because when it comes to like a woman maybe was doing like, was doing an art stream and maybe perhaps wasn't as clothed as the TOS asks for, and she's banned like that. And then when there is somebody, gender regardless, there's somebody accused of sexual harassment, oh, we need to do research into this and we need to look into this before we can ban them, because that would be very serious and very, we can't just ban them without proof. And the two are not even, and it sucks.
Well, right. And then that makes the victim of the harassment feel unsafe, because it's like,
Right.
you're not believing the victim. You're not even acknowledging in that, like, we hear you, we believe you, we're going to double check this to make sure that,
Sure.
This follows protocol, and then we're going to act accordingly. But we want you to know that we hear you and we are going to address this directly. Like, that feels so different and does the same thing.
The difference between just validation, that's all. Like,
Yeah.
validate.
Yeah.
If you could go with your, like, here's what I've learned from interviewing 100 plus mental health professionals. If you could go through your life being more empathetic and validating more people, you got this whole thing made a little bit. You could do a pretty heckin' good job being a pretty decent human. Just validating and empathizing with people. Pretty good.
That's all you need to do. And it's simple, because then you don't even have to approve or condone anything they're doing. You just have to acknowledge.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Ruthie on Fire asks, if I share my personal goal struggles, how can I handle when people attack me for offense? So I post about my personal weight loss goals and get told that I'm body shaming. That's an interesting question.
Well, and that's where the layers are, right? Because what is the difference between body shaming and being proud of yourself and your efforts and your fitness and your wellness? And it is a stigmatized effort. It's kind of like how, like, when our good buddy Gamer Doc posted a profile picture for the first time instead of her logo, she immediately got called an ethot. And she's like, what? And if you know her at all, she's
Yeah.
she's
a lot of things.
a professional.
Yeah.
She's a professional. And so this is such a tough one, because it's like, there is validity in the pains that happen when there is body shaming, because so often there is,
of course,
a culture of body shaming. But it's like, there's a difference between tweeting something and being like, I'm not fat, look at my skinny thighs, skinny tastes better than food ever will. Like, that's definitely fat shaming and not body positive. That's so sad. And please, no one just like
that tweet.
That's me.
I'm so hung up on that. Okay, all right, we're gonna get past this.
That is not me. That is not something I believe. That was an example of a bad tweet. Just for clarification. And then there's also like, hey, I'm working on my physical health and losing weight because I want to feel better. I want to like the way that I look better. And this is my subjective approach. Now, we shouldn't have to say all of that. But it's the ice cream oatmeal thing again, where like, we assume a lot about people's intent online. And if we can all just approach with a little more curiosity and a little less assuming, it'll stop doing the punny joke that everyone says about assuming. Because we're going to be curious and want to know, or we're going to gently challenge that person and be like, hey, this kind of comes off as body shaming. Did you mean it that way? And then they'd be like, oh my gosh, not at all. Let me change it, or let me do something about that, so others aren't hurt by my content. Because often we don't want, most of us, sometimes it does happen, but most of us don't want to intentionally hurt or shame other people in that way. Like, we're not trying to offend others when we're trying to just put ourselves out there and be on the interwebs. But also be proud of yourself for your weight loss, and make sure that it doesn't come with like, oh, I looked so ugly.
Right.
Like, okay, that's where we get into more of a body shaming territory. Let's just talk about the positive growth and the positive change that you've had. And it's okay if like you post about ice cream but not oatmeal, but it's also okay to acknowledge that oatmeal is important too. And we can tweet about oatmeal, and ice cream does not have to be tweeted about with oatmeal, but sometimes.
But we need to balance it out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is happening with my lighting? Okay. I don't know what's happening.
I know, right? The sun has been peeking up between clouds and my lighting's been like,
yeah, that's I literally have my lights are on 2% now, and then my camera makes up for it. And so it like makes Sorry.
Yeah.
That has nothing
Lights
to
are
do
the
with
worst.
anything. But it's like distracting me. That's the problem. But Ruthie and Fire, that was a beautiful question. Thank you so much for that. The
Yeah.
Bushnut asks, I had a conversation with someone with very different views on the world than I do, and I tried explaining to him gender labels and told him that a choice to not respect others' labels boils down to him oppressing them and making them unhappy. He responded that it made him uncomfortable to use those labels since he doesn't recognize other genders. What do you say in a conversation like that? Where's the line for encouraging people to improve their language and behavior? So these are beautiful questions, guys.
They
Really,
are
really
excellent
good.
questions.
Very deep.
Very deep. First of all, I like to link back to kind of what we were talking about not yucking other people's yums. So like, does it fundamentally, I think that person was just purposefully being difficult, but that's just not trying to make like off the cuff assumptions about anything. And I would approach that with curiosity and be like, what is it about acknowledging other genders that's problematic to you?
Right.
Or like, what is it that makes you uncomfortable about it? What does it mean? How does it impact you?
Right.
And making them think thoughtfully about like, does this do anything for me if I call someone Zzier versus he, him? Does it really matter at the end of the day? What does it do to you? Do you get lashes every time you say Zzier? Because then I want to talk to you about where you're living and how we can get you out of there, because that's oppressive in itself. And then we can address Zzier. But in the meantime, yeah, there are situations very rarely where like people are in the closet or it's unsafe socially or physically, but otherwise, like I would wonder I would prod about what makes them uncomfortable. What is it that makes them uncomfortable? And oftentimes, even just acknowledging like, hey, I know that things we aren't familiar with, or things that are new to us, or things that we don't understand can make us uncomfortable. But what is it about this that really bugs you? And I know that that's a shrink question, and that's fine. But I think also when they're like, well, no, okay, well, then we can make a choice about interacting with that person. You know, I really appreciate it, but I need to surround myself with more accepting and understanding people, and I don't think this is going to work. Sorry. Bye.
Yeah.
And being able to use that chosen family stuff. But I think that it's about being excellent to each other. And when someone is talking like that, like, oh, can you read that question again? Because it was so deep and thoughtful.
Okay. Very different views in the world. I told him that I tried explaining to him the gender labels, and told him that it's a choice not to respect others' labels, and it boils down to him oppressing them and making them unhappy. He responded that it made him uncomfortable to use those labels since he doesn't recognize other genders. Where is the line for encouraging people to improve their language and behavior? I think you answer that very well, which is you set the precedent, you set your boundary, and you say, hey, yeah, well, I'm the kind of person that does respect that. So this might not work out if you can't respect that. Yeah. All right. 2 more questions. I know we don't have you for too much time, but
no worries.
Okay. All right. So Midwat asks, how do you train yourself to see someone as their gender or lack thereof, coming from a very small village of 800 to 900 people or less directly in the village? Oh, that's interesting. So like if you don't get it, but you're trying to get it, how do you like understand it better?
So, I mean, understanding is, oh, there you go. The purple balanced it out. So
timers are great.
One thing I would say, it's great. One thing I would say is that this is going to feel silly, but it's a good thing to do behind closed doors in your own time. Look at a picture of that person and say their name and say their pronouns, say their name, say their pronouns, say their name, say their pronouns, repeat. That's
literally what I did. Yeah. To fix my mod mess up. Yeah.
Yep. And then use their name in conversation frequently. Not only psychologically does this make someone feel heard, acknowledged, and more positive towards you, but also it helps us remember. Try using their name instead of their pronouns if you're having a hard time with the pronouns, because that's sometimes easier just to be like, hey, I'm talking to M right now, rather than I'm talking to her right now. It's not that hard to substitute. And then if you're getting caught up in tripping over certain things with gender, and then just accepting that that's their truth. And regardless of how you define gender, and I think this would even go for the sticky person in the previous question, like however you do that, neither here nor there. This is how they do that. This is their person. And you don't get to tell someone what their race is, what their heritage is. You don't get to tell them what their gender is. You don't get to tell them what they eat unless you're their cafeteria lady. And then, okay, well, that's a different conversation, but usually you don't get to tell them what they're allergic to. You don't get to tell them what their eye color is. So why does it? So if you're noticing that, and then not shaming ourselves, not being judgmental towards ourselves when we do mess it up, it's back to that, like, course correct and keep going.
Yeah. You're more likely to continue on the correct course if you don't like beat yourself up about it hours and hours, because then you associate the whole thing with just beating yourself up over and over again.
Right. And then it's just going to be shame in an internal loop. That's not helpful.
Yeah. Signbelt asks, assumptions can hurt and also end up having to be made sometimes. So would, quote, making the least possible amount of assumptions, quote, be an interesting way to approach someone? If not, how many assumptions have to be made before that, and how many will humanity have to get rid of? Signbelt, is it so interesting? Okay, go ahead.
I think I've got it. But so basically I would say the thing you want to be cautious of if you're going to take that approach is that unless you're doing like a clinical intake, you don't ask all of the questions, because if someone identifies as queer, it does not give you the opportunity then to ask them like, oh, so how do you have sex? Like, they shouldn't have to tell you who they want to go to bed with anyways, or who they want to fall in love with or not anyways, like, or how. Like, that's not your business. So first of all is thinking about like, what are the absolutely necessary factoids that I need? So say that you're approaching someone at TwitchCon, like you were describing, like it'd be nice to know someone's name or handle if they don't want to use their public or personal name. That's something you'd probably want to know, and you can approach with curiosity. Gender isn't necessarily something unless you're going to be addressing them on a panel, or you're going to be writing a blurb about them, or you're going to be like connecting with them, but you can probably ferret those things later out with like, look at their profile. You have their handle now. You can do some homework. And then when they talk about things, just ask them open-ended questions, and they'll probably fill in all of the blanks for you, but don't ask all of the questions about their personal life that you could potentially ask. And, you know, if it is a sensitive question that feels relevant to ask them permission to ask them a sensitive question. And then if they don't want to, they can say no. And then you can be like, okay, it's not my business. Done.
That's how that's exactly how I approach it. Cause I remember I used to get like super, so I have, one of my friends, Asika, she's fantastic, but the amount of people, like, she doesn't look traditionally femme or masculine, so the amount of people that come in and ask her if she's a boy or a girl is like appalling. And I used to constantly just like instantly go into defensive mode of like, why the fuck do you care? Like, why are you asking that? You don't need to know.
What does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. And that's kind of like that. I think that's what her moderators normally respond, which is it doesn't matter. But I also I feel like that does even kind of go to pronouns as well, because that is another way of like prying, so to speak. Like,
yes,
right? Because you wouldn't come up to me and be like, do you go by different pronouns? Because that's automatic. That's 14 different assumptions that have nothing to do with our conversation at all. But asking, please let me know what pronouns. Hi, my name is Mxiety. Please let me know what pronouns you go by. That's totally fine. That has nothing to do with anything. But if
I were her mods, I would be like, well, what are you? But also I take the sassy approach 9 times out of 10.
But like, so my response to that is like, I remember this came up when, I can't remember Miss Jenner. I can't remember her name, and it's really bothering me. Catherine?
Now that you say that, I can't either.
Right?
No.
Is it? It's not Catherine.
I don't think it starts with a K.
I think it's K because the stupid Kardashians.
I know.
It's Caitlyn. It is Caitlyn. Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh, it is with a K. Okay, there we go.
Oof. Okay. Yeah. So it came up when somebody very offensively asked Caitlyn Jenner like what she did with her genitalia, and I remember in my head being like, well, I'm curious about that too, and then immediately the response was fantastic, and it taught me so much because I didn't know at the time what was appropriate and what was not. And the response was, do you need to know that? Why do you need to know that? And that's what I ask myself whenever I like encounter something that I don't understand or just doesn't make sense to my, immediate brain reaction. what do I need to know about this in order to like proceed with this discussion, right? Like I'm interviewing somebody and I am going to introduce Dr. Sarah Hayes. She is such and such.
Yeah.
She, you know, I need to be able to say that. But on a like regular conversation, I'm coming into somebody's chat and they're a streamer. What, it could be a giraffe. It doesn't really matter in any shape or form what they identify with, how. Yeah. So
Correct.
I don't think you need to assume anything. I think I know the question was not asked to me, but I think the answer is like, you don't need to assume anything. Just ask yourself, what do I need to know to continue this discussion? And then go from there.
Yep. Challenge your brain. What does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it change my experience of life?
Right.
In any meaningful way?
Right.
And then the other follow-up question you can challenge yourself with is, if I ask this question, how does it impact that person's comfort?
Oh, I like that because it puts the other person ahead. I like that very much. Dr. Sarah Hayes, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. You were absolutely amazing and so generous is the word I'm looking for, with your time and with your care and your responses. So thank you so much. Do you have any closing remarks? Where can we find you? Give us all of your stuff. I keep sending people to your Twitter, but like, is there anything else that people need to see? So there's Women of Esports, obviously. So please go follow that org as well. But anything else?
So if you want to see more of my face this evening or on Wednesday nights, I will, we're planning some stuff in the future. So you'll see me again here. But I am also on GamerDoc stream. It's the GamerDoc_. You can find me on Twitter. She's posting my current handle. I will be changing it soon, but I will make sure that you can still search me by Pterodactyl_X. And then that's like the only social media that I use, because as a therapist, it gets kind of wonky if I post like Instagram and Facebook and this and that. So Twitter's my primary platform. I technically have a Twitch account, but it's like, I don't use it for streaming yet. So you can follow me there, but it doesn't do anything for you. Otherwise, yeah. And I will post that photo to Twitch so you can catch that, the books, my shelfie for the gatekeeping and the women stuff.
Your
shelfie.
So. All right, everyone. We are going to be right back. Thank you so much, everybody who's here. Thank you again, Dr. Hayes.
Thanks for having me. It's been so fun.